You like that? I thought you would. On Hot, Smooth Jazz. The number one, the one channel that gives you the best plant content on YouTube. It's Channel Omar. It's Channel Omar. Let me stop. Let me get to this video. Okay. So, today's video, I wanted to talk about how I got started growing plants and the one plant that I always say is the best beginner's plant. It literally does not die. You can do whatever, you can neglect it, and it will always come back. I don't want to say always, but like 99% of the time. I think I started out growing plants probably in 2018, right after I graduated college, maybe like 2019. I still say that I started growing in the pandemic. I was killing everything. I think I spent like maybe $200, $300 just killing the same plants. And then I think I started out with like a Prince of Orange. I think, do I have one? I have one still. It's over here somewhere. But I was overwatering, I was underwatering, I was leaving out in full sun. I was watching numerous YouTube videos and still could not grasp what I was doing wrong. I thought it was like tap water. I kind of use tap water now. There's different things that I use to, I had a Maranta and I got a Calathea White Fusion. And I was like, this is like the greatest thing in the world. And then 2 days later, it was dead, just dried out, crispy tips. Putting a little pebble tray under, I don't know what I did wrong. It was probably using the tap water. Fast forward a couple more months, I was still experimenting out and I finally picked up a pothos or an epiprimnum. This one I have here is the neon version, which is like an all lime green. When it does start to mature, or the longer the leaves start to turn a little bit darker green, but it still has a good pop of different color. This was, I think, the lifesaver, or like my lifeline, throwing out to like the Titanic. Use this and abuse this. And I did, I abused it. Epiprimnums or pothos is usually the other name that you would hear, or maybe the devil's ivy. These things are so good at, if you want to kind of start out growing your plants or learning how to grow indoor house plants without having to worry about being over a helicopter parent or being sad if it dies, or if you don't water it, or if you leave away for the weekend, come back and it's limping over. Give it a little bit of water and it will spring right back up. I have a bigger one here. This one I have been growing, this one's been on a pole. You can see it. So this one has been about a year's worth of growth. I think I had it at like this bottom part right here. That's when I got it. And it was relatively cheap. I think it was at Home Depot is when I got it for $12. Picked up the pole and a little bit of sphagnum moss, and I used a little bit of yarn to wrap it around. This is not your typical or conventional moss pole, but it worked. I think that the root structures or the aerial roots really cling on to kind of anything. Usually you can see them in Florida, like growing up trees, and when they mature, they do start to penetrate. So that'll be kind of like the little holes, the slits in your leaves. That's the same thing as like monsteras. But a year's worth of growth, and you can see neglected. I sometimes forget about it. Here, let me show you the pot also. I have been kind of playing around with using gold flakes in my newer pots, and you'll like see at the bottom. I thought it was like all the way in the inside around, and then when I pulled it out, it was just at the top, and I was kind of disappointed. But still getting better, still gonna be doing a little bit more pots. And again, it's just to kind of give the plant a little bit more of a dynamic look or a different look. I kind of like to make a color that I think that would be complementing to it. So back to the pothos. Pothos are really easy to kind of find. I would definitely say you can find them in any kind of grocery store, any hardware store like Home Depot, Lowe's. Home Depot is probably my go-to if I ever want to kind of get a plant that I could just experiment with or get it really cheap. Right now that it's the winter, everything is kind of a 50% off or a discounted price. So thinking about getting one would be a really good time because you'll be able to get it at a cheaper price and you get to play around with it. I always say, grow it for maybe a week, see how it's doing. When it comes to lighting, I know they will always say bright indirect lighting. Direct sunlight will burn the leaves a little bit. I mean, even a little bit of direct sunlight won't kill it. Again, these things will grow up trees, so they can take a little bit of a beating. Watering, I definitely would say, even if you wanted to use tap water, I think rainwater, if you don't have any like liquid fertilizer or dry fertilizer, is really good. But again, these things can take a little bit of abuse. They can sit in water. You can chop these up. They propagate really easy. You'll see the node. Oh, let me find that little dot right here. So if you wanted to propagate these, you would cut right below that node in the in-between of two leaves, and that will give you a cutting. And then you can put that in water, you can put that in perlite, you can even put it back into the soil and it will grow with no worries at all. I definitely would say it's probably got one of the highest propagation rates. When it comes to the soil, usually the pot that it's in, it'll be pretty good. I don't think you would have to amend it. If you did want to put it in a bigger pot, I always say, even if you wanted to use Miracle-Gro or just regular potting soil, pick up some like perlite to add in also. But then also, I like to add in some orchid or like some bark or even like cocoa chips, just to add a little bit of air into the soil. Their root systems grow vigorously. The roots are really, really thick. They can kind of grow in kind of any media. I would definitely say they're pretty versatile. There are a bunch of different varieties of pothos. You've got your golden pothos, which is like probably the most common one. The neon over here. But then there's also a different, like a Cebu blue is what I have, but there's a multitude of them that you can get your hands on. And they're really, again, really pretty cheap to buy. And then lighting, I think I said lighting already, but lighting, bright indirect lighting, they can do low light. Some will actually be a little bit of a darker if you don't want it to grow as fast, or if you're going away for the weekend and you know that you water it maybe once a week or twice a week, you can move it a little bit away from the sunlight or away from a bright area into a little bit darker, just so that it kind of slows down drinking up that water. But again, if you want these really big leaves, putting it on a moss pole or on something that it can grow up will allow it to mature a little more. And the bigger the leaves, the more chances that you have pinch straight, which is those slits in the leaves like monsteras. I hope you enjoyed this video. I definitely would recommend, if you wanted to start growing your own plants and start growing your own interior garden, try a pothos. It's really easy, it's relatively cheap, and it can do a lot of different things and show you how to grow a lot of different plants, or get used to kind of making a schedule. One thing also too with pothos is when you are rooting them, they give off a kind of natural rooting hormone. So once you start learning how to do propagations, you can throw in a couple pothos cuttings also, and it'll help it root more in that water or the perlite or the media that you're using. If you like this video, please subscribe or follow me on other social medias at channel_Omar. Leave a comment down to say how you enjoyed this video, things that I could have done better, or videos that you would like to see or plants that you would like to see in the next ones of how to grow and what your experience is with it. I'll show you mine and kind of give you my take. Again, I am not an expert. This has been years kind of in the making. So thank you again and enjoy your Saturday afternoon. Bye.
The #1 channel for the best plant, the #1 station, the #1 station for the best plant content.